You know, they say that one of the happiest sounds in the world is the laughter and giggle of a baby. Except at 3 a.m. and you don't have a baby. Well, that would be terrifying. If you're in the house at 3 a.m. and you hear baby laughter, get out of the house, it's haunted. That's how everyone, why do people investigate? If there are weird sounds in your house, get out. Call somebody, call a professional. Do not linger on this. I mean, have you ever just watched any of those horror movies? Where, you know, people are in the house and something is going on and you hear, get out. The movie would be over at that moment if you're part of my family. Because you know what we're going to do? Get out. We're going to get out. I don't need to go look in the closet or the basement or the attic. I don't need to examine the doll that's up there. I just leave. Now my house is in Flagler. I'm about just a little under 30 minutes from here. And the house backs up to the state park. Every animal under creation will come out of there and stare into my windows. At some point the kids are all out of town. They're doing something. So the house is quiet. It's time for me to go to bed. I'm a late night person. You early morning people, do not call me. Do not call me at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. You're risking it at 9 o'clock, okay? I don't do well with that. I'm a late night person. I check out everything. By the way, when you're in your house by yourself, it's amazing everything you hear. I can remember walking around the house and you hear all this creaking. And it actually was me. I was the one creaking. It happens after a certain, you won't understand this. You're way too young. But it's that moment that you just know. Then I'm in the house. Cats have been fed. The doors are locked. At this point in my life, I'm still going to check everything. I check locks twice. If I'm by myself, even at this age, I will still lock my bedroom door into my house. It's now about probably 2 o'clock in the morning, and I actually just kind of check my room. I don't know if you've ever, are you this paranoid when you're by yourself? You ever do this? The room is empty. It's time to shut the door, lock it, and I climb in bed. And I hear something, I think it's on the roof. Raccoons, maybe? And then, I wake up again and I'm listening, and I'm pretty sure I'm hearing it. Alexa, turn the lights on. Have you ever had the feeling that you were not alone? And I mean, it's just, I can't explain it. Is it a sixth sense? What is it? But at some point, I know I heard the jiggling of a doorknob. It was like a scene from a movie. Oh, and now I know there is a presence. Have you ever felt like something was just that close to you? Well, it can't be. I've checked everything. And in that moment, where I'm now back in twilight, because I need to sleep, it's probably close to 3 a.m. There is a sound that cut me to my core because it was so unexpected. Meow! This cat had gotten into the room. My cat now can open my door. Midas the gold cat now has the ability to stretch his body and open, because I have one of those handles, not one of the knobby, and he can open it, and he will find a drawer, and he will climb into the inner workings of my furniture. I missed a cat for an entire day, finding out that the beautiful chair in the living room, they had clawed out the protective cloth under the chair and made a hammock. We thought it was really cute, so we didn't fix it. But I hate the fact that the chair's been destroyed. These cats are evil. I really, with all my heart, I would bet any amount of money there is nothing in that room, but he was there, waiting for me. For what? It's 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. What could you possibly want? You know, my food dish now is 1/4 empty. I might die. You have to feed me now. No, I do not. Do you like being alone?
No.
There are moments, right? A little solitude, peace and quiet.
Yeah.
It does. And the story of the crucifixion on that Friday, nobody was alone. I mean, it was just chaos of what's happening. And it is the story because every Easter, every time somebody wanted, how many sermons have we done that it's going to be about, and it's rightly so. You talk about, what's the old sermon from, generations back. It's Friday, but
Good Friday.
Sunday's on the way.
Sunday's coming, and Sunday's on the way. We can I can hinge it right now and you can do the sermon. We've done it, right? That Friday was a struggle. And we know what's going to happen on Sunday. We know that. It's resurrection. It's why we have communion. It's why we celebrate. It's why we even have a religion. And if you remove Jesus just as a historic figure, most of us would not exist. Because you think about people that left other countries to come here for religious freedom. If they had never done that, if this had stayed an indigenous nation, and everybody else stayed in Europe, and people stayed over here in the Holy Land, and people, most of us, it would be very, very rare that we would exist. Did you think about that for a second? Even if Jesus was just a historic figure, how his presence on the planet changed everything. Go to that Friday, and I want you to hear the hustle and the bustle and the noise. It's going to be Peter's denials, and it's going to be the trial. It's going to be him carried out. It's the scourging and the beating. It's Simon the Cyrenian that's having to come out and carry the cross because Jesus, under the weight of it, falls. And that's not even the sermon, because you've heard it. And it needs to be repeated. And it's usually after you go through all the grotesqueness of what crucifixion was. And all of the noise and all of the clamor. You've got soldiers who are struggling to find ways to hurt him. Down to stripping his clothes and gambling to see who gets his undergarments. Verse 24, and they crucified him, dividing up his clothes. They cast lots to see what each would get. It's the biggest day in the world, and they're playing games at the foot of the cross. The Bible describes Jesus' undergarment as a one-piece garment. Today we're pretty impressed when we find seamless shirts. I hate tags. What about you? Mm-hmm. And not to get too graphic, but there are underwear manufacturers. If you've ever put on a pair of underwear that is seamless, like the machines that have the ability to weave it, so there are no, it's comfy. They were fighting. I'm just going to take a best guess that his mom made his underclothes, because it's such an interesting detail that the scripture talks about. Jesus' undergarment was a one piece, which means somebody with loving care managed to make it, to weave it, to loom it with no seams. And these guys are fighting over his underwear. You're dying for all of humanity, and they're fighting over your underwear. It's not even the sermon. These details, you're saying there's people far greater who have given you all of this in such vivid detail. Go online. It'll serve you better to listen to them than to listen to me today. Because there's some great preachers who've talked about Friday, the crucifixion, and all that happened until finally he's carried away to a tomb. Katoom! The stone is rolled in place and guards are put there. And then we jump to Sunday. It's resurrection. The tomb is open. The stone has been rolled away. An angel is sitting on top. And it is such a peaceful moment. The scripture even says that Jesus' grave clothes were folded. Now, this is how you know it's not, this is how I can never be Jesus. Because it would tell the story that my grave clothes, my laundry, is still sitting in a chair somewhere in the tomb waiting to be folded. Because that is usually what happens when I do laundry. It takes me about 2 weeks to get to folding it. Jesus, after the crucifixion, has such peace about him that he folds his clothes. It's not Friday and it's not Sunday. What's Friday called? What'd you call Friday?
Good Friday.
Good Friday. And a Resurrection Sunday. Can we just sit at Silent Saturday for a moment? Because that's where we find ourselves a lot of times. Yes, the calamity has happened. It's the death, it's the injury, it's the diagnosis. It's whatever it is, whether it's something as global as a pandemic or something as personal as something you've heard or seen that strikes you to your core. We've all had that moment, and we all have stories today. We can talk about what happened on the Sunday. It's our Resurrection Sunday. Look, we're having a banquet, we're going to have a party, everybody. But we've got to dwell for a moment on Silent Saturday. Because often it's all about waiting. Silence does not mean abandonment. This past April, a man named Geraldo was in Los Angeles. He was in one of the state parks with a tour group. He's 50 years old, and he's with the group. And you know how it goes when you're on a tour group. Sometimes you're moving fast, sometimes you're shuffling, sometimes something gets your attention. You can remember being a little kid, maybe being in the museum, being at the art show, whatever it is, and somebody has to come and get you. I remember, I've loved my stories with my mom. I remember being in Kmart, which doesn't exist anymore. How is that even possible? Do you know what a blue light special is?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Oh, good, thank you. Because that's a sign of civilization right there. Many of us grew up with a blue light special. They'd roll the card out, you'd have the big thing with the siren, and you would find out whatever's on sale. Oh, diapers are on sale. You don't even have children. You'll go buy diapers because it's a blue light special. I remember being in a store, and I got separated from my mom. I was in Kmart. And my mom, I could hear her off in the distance go, "Where's my baby?" So I've lost my, somebody find my baby, and people are clamoring, and I'm trying to find my way over to her. And eventually she sees me, and there's just this sense of relief as she comes rushing towards me. And she was like, "I found my baby," and I'm like, "What are you doing? I am 16 years old." She goes, "You were out of," Mom, embarrassing. It's true. That is absolutely 100% true story. You know, Mom. She would cause a scene like that. But what do you do at that moment? And the tragedy was yesterday. And you don't have a prophecy that's going to tell you that tomorrow or next week or next year it all gets better. You sit and you think, nobody's there. Well, in April, Geraldo is in the national park in the San Andreas Mountains. He is on this tour group, and he gets separated from it. The problem is, the group was for people with disabilities. He is stone deaf. People are yelling. And no matter how many times, they're like, "He can't hear you." It's our natural calling out. And he doesn't know. He doesn't know they're looking. He can't hear them. But are they there? Often we are calling out. We want God to intervene. Are you listening? And we're just deaf to his responses. Silence is not abandonment. If you've ever had surgery, you're not listening, but the doctor's working. There are times that you've been lost. Somebody's looking for you. You may not know it. You can go back in time to a little girl. Remember Jessica falling down the well? The whole world tuned in. And that little girl pressed up in there, if you ever saw her come out, she was almost, looks like a caterpillar. She's just so wrapped up when they brought her out. She couldn't hear everything that was said in the prayers. And she's all grown up now. And she said, I knew that I fell down. And I'm hoping somebody would find me. And every once in a while, there's somebody, and she was like 100 feet down. This was terrifying. Just a small hole. But just for a 5-year-old, just big enough. You think about that Argentinian group, the teenagers, the children that were on that team, that they were caving, and then the water rose. And I mean, it's a whole movie now. I can't watch it because I cry at stuff like, I cry at old Kodak commercials. I can't help it. But it's that moment where you go, there's no way. And the people that were inside it, that story is fascinating, because what it took to do cave diving, which professional divers are very hesitant to do cave diving, that they actually cave dove in there, and then with all the apparatus that usually an expert would have to have.
Those 4 little kids recently.
Yes. It
40
just,
days.
oh, terrifying. They were on a plane, and the plane crashed. They were trying to get them out of a place where there was human trafficking. The plane went down. The youngest was like 18 months old. The oldest is 13. And for 2 months, they're in the jungle. And everybody survived. People were looking frantically, but they didn't know it. Sometimes, like your story, that you're fighting to survive. Sometimes you're that person separated from the group, completely bewildered. But people are searching. You may be going through the Saturday of your life, where everybody else is on vacation. It's Saturday, let's go boating. Let's have a picnic. And you're sitting back in sackcloth and ashes going, how did that Friday happen? Does anybody even care? People checked on you last week, but they didn't this week, and it feels like they do. We're forgetful. People fall through the cracks. It doesn't mean they do not care. How often did you have moments, still do, where people have expectation of you? There's only one of you. And in the world of ministry, and in the world of friendship, and in the world of relationships, do we get to everybody every time? No. You ever have somebody disappointed because they thought you did nothing? But you're trying your best? Family, the Saturdays come, and as the rest of the world seems to be kicking back in a hammock or having a cold one or being at the beach, you wonder, does God hear me? Does He care? Have I been forgotten? Did anybody in Scripture ask those questions? Is there an entire book of somebody asking those questions for 30 chapters?
Yes.
That book is? You were so close. Remember the song, every time I go into the house, I hear that woman's mouth preaching and crying about a job that I never could find. Oh, come on. Job, yes. Job is this guy that literally, the devil himself tries to throw everything in his way, and God says, you're not going to take this man's life, but that man is faithful. And everything in the world is thrown at him. He loses family, property, money, everything you could imagine. Far worse than most people will ever experience. Not everybody. Some people have things worse than Job. And Job laments chapter after chapter. It's not a story, and Job popped back up and was smiling at God. No, Job was questioning God for chapter after chapter, going, why? Why? A good friend whom I love very much called me. I'm telling your story, but I'm not going to say your name. It's for the camera. He called because he just had his truck transmission repaired. And now, after paying for a transmission, the brakes, well, you need the brakes, the entire brake system failed while he's driving it. Manages to make emergency stop, gets the car towed. It's close to $1,000. Just, do you like an unexpected $1,000 repair?
No, I just had.
And he's helping. I know. Good heavens, you'd think you could buy another car for the cost of getting your window fixed.
Yeah.
And the guy that, if you're listening, I'm coming after you because you're messing with my cousin. There was a gentleman that they gave all the great graces to help do repairs, and found out he was pocketing the money on several different things with family and did nothing.
Oh, no.
And he had to close his business. People paid him to paint vehicles, which he didn't do. Told her vehicle was repaired, never touched the inside of it, just doctored it up on, halfway through so it would do a little bit. He's like, oh, what's going on? Found out once it went to the dealership, he did nothing. You sit back and go, really? Hundreds upon hundreds of dollars? And we sit there on our Saturdays while other people are enjoying it and we're lamenting. God understands lamenting. In fact, there's an entire book about it, and it's not just Job, it's the book of Lamentations. Lamentations. It's an Old Testament book. It's an entire book around people complaining. Huh?
Bigger than the Old Testament.
Are you? I knew that you. I can't go there. I would be canceled. You can.
You can. I won't cancel you.
Thank you. It was Jewish whining. It's exactly what it was. That is actually an Olympic competition sport in the Jewish world. If you find yourself in your Saturday, you may feel like no one's there. Absolutely, God is working. Because while the soldiers were struggling for ways to hurt him, and parents were trying to struggle to find ways to explain what their children are seeing, as the disciples are struggling through that Friday, then scatter like the wind. It would have been so much easier if Jesus had gone to the crucifixion, he dies, the head drops, and 15 minutes later, a bolt of lightning hits, the ground shakes, and Jesus pops off the cross. The disciples go, yay! And there's a big party, and confetti cannons go off, and we all go, look at the power of God. Somehow, we would find a way to dismiss it. I don't believe it. Even after 3 days in the tomb, there's still people, maybe he was just sick. Maybe he was unconscious. There are people who want to dismiss it. Somehow we don't have the appreciation. And you can't jump from Friday to Sunday. You know I do a lot of funerals. This week was just packed, and some of the stories will break your heart. I don't like hearing it hurts when I have people that I've seen multiple times and I see that their families have had loss upon loss. There was a family, without going into details, that I've buried 2 of the lady's children. A couple of years ago, she had a loss of a daughter, and now, these past few weeks, she had the loss of a son. They were young. And one of the things that you don't say it at that moment, but I can say it to you so that when the time comes, maybe it'll come back to you. When it comes to grief, I want to go over it. I can't. Then I'll go under it. I'll find, no, you can't. I'll go around, you can't. What do you have to do? No. Make it different. You're right, but I don't like the answer. We want the miracle. I'm sorry about your diagnosis. Lord, I'm a Christian. Kapoof! Oh my goodness, look at your test results. You're healed. I'm sorry. Are there accounts of miracles? Absolutely. Do we believe in the power of prayer? Absolutely. Anybody remember the movie Bruce Almighty?
Yes.
Jim Carrey encounters Morgan Freeman, who does a great job playing God. For those of us who have a little time on the clock, we watch George Burns
Yeah.
and John Denver. So here's Morgan Freeman playing God, and you have Jim Carrey just questioning like Job. And God goes, okay, you're so smart. Why don't you take my power for a while and fix everything? Do you remember when people are praying and Jim Carrey is like, oh my goodness, is this what you have to put up with, God? Is this it? I'm hearing everybody's prayers. Morgan Freeman says, no, you're not. That's just one square block in your city. Because when does it turn off? It doesn't. So he would hear the prayer request and he's trying to figure out how to answer them. Eventually, being Jim Carrey, he turns prayers into a computer that sends messages to him. And he just tells the computer whatever they ask, tell them yes. He goes to bed. The next day, the city is on fire. People are fighting and rioting because everybody got exactly what they asked for, exactly like they asked. How would your life be different if everything you prayed for happened exactly like you prayed?
Be on fire.
We, in our limited understanding, can make wishes, hopes, dreams, and prayers. But without having the divine knowledge of a timeline that means nothing to God, in our finite moment, can wish, hope, pray, and get something that was not the right answer. Sometimes in our Friday, when everything seems to be on fire and it's chaos, we just want to say, give it to me my way. Make it disappear. Can I go over it, under it? Hey folks, Jesus is the Son of God. And when he was in a garden, he actually said, I'm paraphrasing, Father, can we get over it? No. Can I go under? No. If there's some other way, no. If Jesus can pray to God, his Father in heaven, if there's some other way, let this cup pass from me. If we find our way to say, not my will, but thine be done. It's not that God's will is that you suffer. It's that while you suffer, you're still willing to do God's will. Did you hear that? See, that's the whole story of Job. Job is not the story of, that's my servant, do whatever you want, bounces right off of him. How many people would become Christians because they were immune to everything in the world? Go ahead, come through the doors right now and nothing bad ever happens. How many people would show up here? All the bills disappear. Health problems disappear. Now let me ask you, when they all show up, are they showing up for God? Or to meet the genie of the lamp? It's human nature. If you were banking at a bank and they had a policy that any bank error is in your favor. We mess up, you keep it. You show up at the ATM machine, you want to get 20 bucks and it just starts handing $100 bills out. And you can read the policy. Every $100 bill that comes out, you get to keep. Bank policy. When do you stop the machine? Hello? First Bank of Florida? You're out of hundreds. Could you refill that thing? And then you go get a Ryder truck and you just sit there and you keep loading up laundry bags full of money because it's human nature. If God was genie of the lamp, I can't imagine what our world would be like. Is there pain? Yes. Is there suffering? Yes. Does it end? Yes, it does. Because just like the sermon that we would usually give, Sunday is coming. The Sunday 2,000 years ago was the resurrection. The next one will be the return of the Lord when we meet him in the air. When we leave this world. When we see God. Because one of two things is guaranteed to happen. Either he's coming back to us or we're going to him. You're going to see him. But I can't stop it. I don't know how to stop it. I'd like to stop it. Or maybe delay it. I mean, we can medicate it and Botox it and everything we can try to do to it, but it's going to happen. I've had people who've passed away that you go, My goodness, they looked dead. They did not do well in death. Something happened that just you can tell. And I've had people who are beautiful, stunning, but they're both dead. The day comes. It's not meant to scare you. It's meant to let you know that one way or the other, if he comes, it fixes everything. And if you go to him, it fixes everything. There will come a day when your last breath will be drawn. There will come a day, no matter where you are, you will know that there will not be a sunrise tomorrow for you. There will not be another meal or another day at the beach. All those things, we don't want to think, but we don't want to think about it. And it's coming. The last beats are coming. And just as you take that last breath and you go, here it goes, this is it. It's just like that moment of the roller coaster. And I'm going, and then suddenly an angel appears before you. Boom. What just happened? Am I dead? Not yet. I'm going to send you back to today. Because I don't think you're going to die today. So wherever that date is in the future where we've moved your death moment, your big death scene, the angel picks you up and drops you off right here at New Church. Poof. What just happened? You get a do-over. What does that mean? It means that whatever that time is in the future that you're going to die, all the regrets, all the things you wish you would have done, all the things you would have wished you'd let go of, all the worries, all the animosity, all the things that you think are important, the thing, I can't live like this. Suddenly at that moment, don't matter because you're drawing your very last breath. But that's not today. You've been picked off, dropped off right here today. It's miraculous. What are you going to do? Before you arrive at this moment, what are you going to do? Are you going to live every day like it's your Saturday? In silence, believing God is not there? Are you going to try to relive your Friday, the tragedy that has marked your life? Or will you remember that either He's coming to you or you're going to Him? And it really is going to be okay. Our hiker in our story was found. They found that everybody needed to stop yelling and just reach out their hands as far as they could. Because often in the tree brush, it's difficult to see, and we depend on the voice, and they would just keep waving to see if any of the emotion would capture his attention. And when it did, even at a distance, he understood what they were saying. We are coming to get you. You may not be able to hear God today, but if you look around, He has waved His hands pretty mightily. It's all going to be okay. Would you pray with me? Father God, it is a prayer of thanksgiving today that we will be more like You. Give us the patience, give us the endurance. Sometimes we just need to fold in and just lean on your chest for a moment and realize it's going to be okay. You're always here. Though we may not be able to hear because of our disability, our inability, that doesn't mean you're not looking, searching, rescuing. We're thankful for that Friday, as difficult as it is, and we're thankful for that Sunday. Continue to see us through the Saturday. We lift this up in Your name, and amen.